Hello everyone, thank you. This is Tibetan Buddhist Society of Canberra in Australia. Thank you for joining us. Sorry we're a few minutes not on time, but we are here now. So thank you everybody for being patient. We'll do a short prayer just to start up our mission of altruism and temporarily not listening just for myself or for comfort of the body, but for the benefit of others and our future and mind stream. With this in mind, we salute and acknowledge amazing infinite qualities, virtues of the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, and our karma to have this together. So we should rejoice all those positive things. Particularly, we see so many difficulties around us. We need to value the time that we are healthy and positive and studious and able to be all of that is also great blessings. So to acknowledge all of that, I will just recite the refuge prayer and cultivation of the loving kindness and compassion, joy and equanimity as the four immeasurable practices. Inda Buddha Dharma Sangha Aitere Fete Lajame Bhavacha Ajyadala Ajare Buddha Vajuvebe Inda Buddha Dharma Sangha Aitere Fete Lajame Bhavacha Ajyadala Ajare Buddha Vajuvebe Inda Buddha Dharma Sangha Aitere Fete Lajame Bhavacha Ajyadala Ajare Buddha Vajuvebe. May all beings have happiness and the cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they never part from happiness that know no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment, aversion, those near far. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they never part from happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment, aversion, those near and far. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they never part from happiness that know no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment, aversion, those near and far. Mazu jeme jara bara jara ma jeme ngana ngawanya zozara ije aduzun jave la janza namba aduzun jave la janza lo gaden gade baranga de barazan gaden bodizom gaden gade baranga de barazan gaden bod gaden gade baranga de barazan gaden bodizom 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 gaden de baranga de barazanga de bud amanga de baranga de barazanga de bud zanga de baranga de barazanga de bud zanga de baranga de barazanga de bud anga de baranga de barazanga de bud zova anga de baranga de barazanga de bud zanga de baranga barazanga de bud zanga de baranga de barazanga de bud zanga de baranga de barazanga de bud zanga de baranga de barazanga de bud zo namala janza zangela janza jala janza genela jama jara jibara jama janza jana janza du ne da jage den betsin de jibaji zang la ba jim jama jara jibara de danza mila zang ce gadan ju du ne wala dan godan jiba dan ba jiba banje me ne be jan ba ba konjo zum ni kai den be da dan che ndo ba re ju me ba je ra de je ra je zo be jan ju ba la che dan nan ge zo ya ba de je ba dan ne wa re je an za do so thank you once again, everyone. Good to have everybody's company, which I know there are many of you tuning in, listening, and sharing and commenting these teachings. I'm just thinking briefly in relation to these teachings through this medium these days, how important it is to make these things available, because they're always they're always talking about how few are willing to take up the position of the teaching positions in Buddha Dharma. Mainly because it's so many years of training and dedication before even to become qualified, let alone have the commitment and discipline to teach. So I was thinking maybe we don't have to worry too much about the fewness of the number, if we can use this kind of platform where the teaching can be heard and radiated as many as there are gadgets, everybody who shares, and then lots of people get to hear. Because after all, this teaching comes from Buddha. It's no teacher is any teacher by themselves. These teachings are coming from the Buddha and all these galaxies of Indian Mahasiddhas and Panditas whose writing we are studying and teaching. So nowadays we can make it spread to so many people. Even when you used to do live class where people present, only say 20, 30, maybe maximum, because our space is not big enough. Nowadays we have at least couple of hundred, 300-400. So therefore we don't have to worry about the lack of people who take a position, but we have the number of who are willing to listen are still not decreasing. So with the benefit of the modern technology, we can reach out and permeate this teaching far and wide. So thank you for everybody who's been joining regularly and sharing this with other people. Because if you share, that means that many people of your friends will see. Out of that, maybe only a small fraction will see. But even if one person heard the Dharma for the first time, it will be great benefit. So that's why we are doing this. We have finished last week talking about the importance of how to have the vigilance and introspection, so that we actually imagine ourselves constantly being guarded by the presence of the Buddha, as if there is some kind of a device on our head that actually makes us to become aware that we are constantly under the protective sort of pavilion of the Buddha's kindness. So with this sense of fear and shame, embarrassment, we must therefore guard our mind in that we are a disciple of Buddha, and Buddhas are always omniscient, and they are always before me. And so it's like you wouldn't do certain things because there's somebody there, and because you are very thoughtful of other people, you didn't do certain things, you didn't say certain things, so that's really helping us to guard our mindfulness. So here, for the Buddhist point of view, you say Buddha is omniscient. Buddha is omniscient. For us, we have to have something really directly manifest, then we can see them. But Buddha could see many hidden things, very, very hidden things to normal naked eyes. Buddhas could see from afar. Buddhas are not sort of stuck in one place called Akanishta or Sukhavati. Buddhas are everywhere. Everywhere there's space, there is an omniscient mind. So you can't say there is no space, because all the space is Dharma Dhatu. The sphere of reality is. So being able to be mindful of that also can help you to be well guarded. So that's where we stopped last week. Now tonight we start on the verse number 33. Which goes to talk about when the mindfulness is stationed as a sentinel, which means door, a guard upon the threshold of the mind, because your mindfulness itself is staying at the door of your your mindfulness is staying at the door of your mind, And he is there to guard just that mind. He's just there to guard the very mind. At that time, the introspection is also present. Here, the people who translate this, they call mental scrutiny, but I don't think we have to use that. We have to use introspection. Introspection is quite a good word in itself. Introspection is mental scrutiny. So, she shin, the Tibetan word is she shin. She means to awareness, shin means this ongoing awareness of the awareness, So introspection is you are subjectively always checking the presence or lack of the guard at the door of the mind, So you have already stationed the guard at the gate, but you're also checking whether he's doing the guarding the door or not. These days, a lot of security cameras, isn't it? People have guard everywhere doing various things, but they have this security camera and they can see everybody. Like that, you have to have this introspective mind that actually check the presence of the guard or not. Because if you how do you know that you have not only mindfulness and introspection? Because the difference between mindfulness is actually staying attentive to the thing you're doing, and introspection is checking the quality. It's like a quality of the mindfulness. It's just like someone who's a quality controller. Lots of people doing things, but someone comes and checks he's just the inspector. He's just quality controller. Likewise, subjectively speaking, for a person who wanted to guard his mind, he has to first make sure the guard is at the door of the mind. Secondly, he checks whether the guard is doing the guarding of the door or not. So that's what because when you have the introspection that is present at the heart, then it says even those that has been forgotten will be remembered. You will be recalled. You can recall. So if you have the introspection, as soon as introspection is present, then it can bring back what has been forgotten by mindfulness, because mindfulness is like someone else's checking. You're not only checking, the three other people are checking what you have done. And the third one checks, and all three of you check. It went pass. So means it's pretty good scrutiny. But if you have only one person checking, it's just like we call proofreading. Proofreading is like that. Someone read it and proved, and then someone else has read another proof. Then it becomes very good quality of addition. Like that, you need to check what is the edition of your mind that is worth publishing. Yeah, because we don't realize some of our thoughts are not worthy of editing or publishing. So you got to check whether your thoughts, your opinions, your perceptions are worthy of putting it out. So you have to first check. First you check whether is it really printed ready, is it been proofread? It has been really done, final proof. That's not just a draft. First you have to check the draft of your thoughts. Then you have to prove the draft. Then you got to check how well that is, how it can be improved even further. This kind of scrutiny, this kind of commitment to mind your own mind is called introspection. What does it do? The introspection will make you to recall things or reclaim things that has been forgotten before. Because it is the function of the introspection is able. So the kindness of some say people who don't have mindfulness, they forget the kindness of the mother or the father. They only remember recent difficulties or some of their mistakes, and then they just lump them dead. But you practice mindfulness, you're guarding your mind, then you will remember all those forgotten kindness of your parents, or forgotten goodness of your mother, or forgotten generosity of somebody. You remember them, and as soon as that, then your mind at the door has been not only guarded by you, but there is a function. Because of that, you have now reclaimed your lost memory of the goodness of somebody. Maybe you're a bit difficult. You are very self, I would say, critical. You should think about some of the goodness that you do, some of the unnoticed by other people. But you have tried your best. So you got to introspectively see, I have tried my best. So don't belt yourself. Don't self-sabotage yourself. If you have practiced guarding your mind, you will be gentler and kinder and to you than you previously have ever learned that to do with anyone else. So that is like you're almost reclaiming your mind more than the mind that you ever had before. You didn't really discover that you have such a mind that can be so generous, that can be so cheerful, that can be so I would say so encouraging to you. This is what the Buddha Dharma is all about. It's all try to boost your own goodness that lay latent in you, that is in your latencies. Latencies is like it's like a dormant in you. It's there. It's just like creamy milk has butter in them. You just have to churn it. Before you thought there was no milk, no butter, and you were nearly going to throw away the milk. But it is in the milk. Butter is in that creamy milk. You just have to know how to churn it. You have to know how to churn it, and you have to make sure that you don't throw away the milk. And likewise, don't throw away your bath with the baby with the bath water. Some people like that. They're so critical of someone for one mistake, and then their 20 years of friendship, they just went out of the window because they're so unmindful, let alone introspective, because they thought they were so right. They saw the other one is so wrong. And what did they do? They just completely lost their mind. And over what? They're righteous. They're good. Otherwise, we did this. And quite a lot of people are reacting like that over things. And there's so much damage caused because they completely, there's a small hole in the vase. Instead of mending the vase, they hit a hammer on it. Then everything that is in the vase was just completely lost. That kind of is complete opposite of this, You haven't put a guard at the mind, door of the mind to mind your mind, let alone introspecting it, because there is no one there. You just broke the gate, and then everybody came in, something like that. So therefore, we should do the opposite. We should station our guard at the door of your mind, and then check that guard that he is doing okay. Once you are helping him, then even things that were lapsed before will all be regained. So that's a really, really important. It's talking about the benefit of an introspection versus together with mindfulness. You may have lapsed a few things before, or maybe even some people have lapsed a few things. But even though they have lapsed few things and let you down one or two things, but think of the overall goodness of them to you or to other people. You think like that. That is the guard, putting the guard at the door of your mind. You're losing picture. You're losing the big picture when you don't have the mindfulness, let alone the introspection. When you're able to remember the big picture, you have not only mindfulness, but you have not only put the guard at the door of mindfulness, but also you have introspection, checking the quality of it. So that kind of goodness is very, very important. So that's that. So if at the outside, when I check my mind, so as a result of you now become very introspective, when you check your mind, I find with some fault and insufficiency. Yeah, it's very nature to know one who's introspective is actually find faults where he least expect them to find. I'll stay unmoving like a log, So this is very important. When you see the fault in you or fault in somebody, don't get agitated. Don't become infuriated by this, So you should be, if self-possession and determination, you should be able to control yourself like a log, You don't just agitate it and become so reactive and become so driven by something, You know, say if you find fault of yourself, don't do that, even to yourself, let alone find fault of somebody, you know. Say, if I can paraphrase this, if at the outset, when I check other person, I find some fault and insufficiency, I'll stay unmoving like a dog. You know, so even if you did notice somebody else's faults, maybe somebody else said somebody else's fault, and usually these are called stirrer. They will stir you, but you should remain. You should remain as you have self-control, and you know that it's already bad enough. You don't have to stir. You don't have to stir again. You know, that is self-control. That is mindfulness. When you talk about somebody else's fault and suffering, do you have to make sure that suffering and fault of that is put out to everybody so that everybody can notice? What good that would going to do? People without any self-control will do just that, and because they lost their mind. They don't have a guard at the door, let alone one who checks whether there's a guard or not. So here he says that if I do this subjectively check my own mind, and if I find my own fault, I shouldn't be belting myself. I shouldn't be self-sabotaging myself. Some people are so self-conscious and self-important. If they have some fault, they can't tolerate it. They're so impatient. They don't realize even their faults are impermanent. If you have mindfulness in Buddhism, even your fault of your father, even your mistake of somebody, think that is not them. That's just a little mistake. That's just a missed turn. Give him a break, that's just a missed turn. He thought it was the first one on the left when it was the second, Give him a break. And take it to yourself as well. At that time, those who have mind control will not moan and groan for you having made the wrong turn. You have to be mindful how not to do that. Why? Because who doesn't have fault? Who doesn't make a wrong turn? So be gentle, be kind. That is mindfulness. That is compassion. That is introspection. And this kind of, if somebody has some faults, you can't tolerate it. That's not mindfulness. That's intolerance. That's intolerance practice. Yeah, there's a lot of intolerance. They call zero tolerance in this materialistic society. They're all promoting that it should be zero tolerance because they have no room to practice any kind of sane human behavior. When somebody falters, somebody flaws, you should say, oh, I used to be like that. I still have some faults. As soon as you think like that, what does it do? It controls your reaction. It restrains your righteousness. It restrains your impatience. It restrains your judgment. This is mindfulness. This is introspection. In self-possession, he says, as if you're possessed by yourself. You just have to control yourself. You're too busy to control yourself, and determination to do that. Determination to do just that. What I will do that. So Shantideva is saying, I will do that. He's saying himself, and if I see any fault in me, my mind falters, I should control it. I should be tolerant. I should learn to guard that very mind from overreacting to myself, I shall never vacantly, meaning I shall never distractedly allow my gaze to wander all about. So meaning you will be so mindful guarding your mindfulness because you have stationed your guard at the mind. You should not be always looking hither and thither and always as if you're looking for something. Always you're missing something and your life is so empty or something. You're so vacant, so vacantly. Just have some kind of control. Don't act so look like a hungry dog everywhere looking for sniffing, everywhere looking. I would not let my gaze of eyes even wander all about, but rather with a focused mind, rather with a focused mind, will always go with eyes cast down. So meaning I will bring my mind just where my feet is. Don't look hither and thither, too far ahead or like that. Except for safety reasons, you should just be so composed and mindful and have your gaze of eyes cast right in front of you, not looking hither and thither and looking in the back and looking in the front and moving and all that kind of thing. Because when you're mindful of your gaze. You're mindful of your listening as well. What are you listening? What are you hearing? Is it what you're hearing, what they're saying, or what you're hearing, what you're thinking they're saying? It's very good to be mindful of that. So meaning that I will not wonder about, oh, he said this and think that's all. You just misunderstood him totally. Why? Because you were so distracted thinking what he said is what he said. So I should never vacantly allow my gaze or here in his listening to wander all about. Don't become so opinionated. Whatever you thought was that what you heard. That's not the case. That wasn't the meaning. That's just quite opposite. So therefore, with the focused mind, I will always guard my gaze of the eyes or my auditory consciousness. Yeah. So. You will keep a very, very good downcast gaze of eyes. So the mindfulness, one who is really guarding his mind. But that I may relax my gaze, I'll sometimes raise my eyes, look around, and if some person stands within my sight, I'll greet him with friendly word of welcome. So Shantideva was talking. He says, "How should I behave?" He says, "Just for the sake of resting, I can look hither and thither to make sure that I'm not out of I'm not blocking someone's way or safety for some. I can look hither and thither. Otherwise, if I see somebody, I shall not ignore them. I shall greet them. I shall say the welcome or greet them, and whatever is appropriate, socially or individually appropriate way of greeting or way of farewelling or way of thanking or whatever. I will do that. So this is just talking about whether there's a lot of danger. People just don't want to see anybody, or they just quickly want to not see anybody. Not like that. You need to acknowledge them, and so therefore you're actually very conscientious of what way you may do, what you may not do. Because you become you have stationed the guard at the door of your mind. Remember. And yet, to spy the danger on the road. So, if you wanted to find, of course, on the road you have to be mindful. Danger on the road. I'll scrutinize the four directions one by one. And they say in the street crossing, they say, look, wait, and cross. Like that. You don't, like particularly at road intersections, one should be mindful. You should look on the either side, on the front, or in the back. Particularly with driving, it's so dangerous. So, and I will stop to rest. I'll turn my head and look behind me, back along my path. So he's talking about how for the sake of safety of others and yourself and the traffic, you will check in the front, the back, on the right and the left. When all sides are safe, then I'll move ahead. It's amazing, just like a very common sense, It looks like Shantideva was talking about modern people who are crossing the streets, I don't think they had this many kind of busy street those days, in 8th century when he wrote this. He's just talking about how to be a very, very, very collected monk that Shantideva was. He's saying how I should. He's not talking about saying I'm going to go to the mall today and go and buy these. There's something like this. He says, I'm gonna go down the road and look and hither and left and right and front and back, and only when it's safe I'll proceed. And it's just like a real good practice example, instruction of how to be mindful. People have often had accident, just because they didn't look on the left before they moved to the left, or before they turned to the left, and they didn't realize somebody else has put his speck or something on the chair before you sat. Just check before you sit on it. And not just because it's someone else's, not because whether it's safe to sit on it or not. Not necessarily every place it should be just set because you want to sit. You got to check whether it is safe to sit on or safe to turn the left, or So deciding on a given course, determining the action of my body, from time to time I will verify my body's action by repeated scrutiny. So this is talking about how the practitioner should always be mindful. Physically speaking, mindfulness body, meaning mindfulness of the body, what he does, deciding on time, and what should I do? Should I take the bin? Should I cross the street? Do I have time to get there before they get there? That kind of thing. I'll verify my bodily actions. Do I have time to pack those things before I can do these, or whatever it is? You should be mindful of your body, and therefore do punctually. Go and do something a little bit ahead of time, so you wouldn't be rushing yourself in. And this kind of timeliness, mindful of time, is the mindful of one who guards his mind. He's mindful of his commitment, what time he has to do, how long should it take, how much longer than it shouldn't take, and this kind of meaning. Then the person becomes very, very punctual and very, very good at his time management, and then his bodily actions will be executed very well. We're talking about physical coordination, being able to do things for the benefit of good outcome. This mind of mine, a wild and rampant elephant. Now this is the example where the wild elephant comes in. While taming the wild elephant mind. He says, this mind of mine, wild and rampant. A rampant elephant, because Shantideva talks about the not just wild and he's talking intoxicated elephant. I'll tether to that sturdy post, reflecting on the teaching. So he says, I'll tether the elephant mind to the post of the teaching, so that the elephant, rampant and kind of wild and intoxicated elephant cannot move, because you're going to tie him to the post, and I shall narrowly stand guard, meaning then I'll without losing my attention, I'll guard that it might never slip its bond and flee. So therefore you don't want to let your mind so rampantly, so agitatingly flee from the post that you have focused your mind on. So this is pretty this is why the book Taming the Elephant Mind, it actually came from this kind of very, very classic Buddhist ideas. I think Shantideva is not the first one. It is actually Buddha was the first one in one of the sutras, talking about how to tie the elephant like mind to the post of mindfulness, and not let him go run fast. So tying mindfully and then keeping an eye introspectionally. So keeping an eye to the elephant that is tied on the post with the rope is the mindfulness of the mind. The elephant is the mind. The rope is the mindfulness, and the one that is checking is the introspection. Why you have to check? Because the elephant is always very, very moving, very, very wild. So you will make sure that it wouldn't come loose and free. The mind has a tendency to do that, because Dharma is the very important post on which the mind should be tied to. So if you're reading regularly, if you're meditating, if you're doing your sadhanas, if you're studying, if you're translating or whatever, you're doing that. If you find yourself doing that for 3 hours, you don't even know how the time went, and it's so useful spending of time, and so when then your all energy and effort has been fully put to use, because you didn't let mind to look hither and thither, always looking what's on in town, what I can do next Friday, all that kind of restless kids like the mentality. Just fix your attention to do what you have to do tonight, and do that for wholeheartedly, so that your mind doesn't come loose and run, so run. So that's why meditation discipline is very good. Discipline to meditate is very good, because if you do regularly, you can see. Otherwise, you wander off. You go and do this. People pick up all kind of bad habits and useless waste of time with some people, and they don't realize how poor manager of their time. They don't do the important things, and they ignore it, and then they have the huge backlog of things. It is cause of their stress and sometimes even depression. That's why we don't want the elephant to go rampant. We want the elephant to be usefully tied to the post, and it obeys and make it to do the task that it is meant to be doing. Elephant is meant to be doing, because elephant is such a big creature. You can't ignore its importance. When it does go on rampage, it goes so many distractions. Lots of people's life. This all caused by their own childish lack of control, self-control of their emotion and thoughts. They just believe their rampant thoughts and thinking they are true, thinking they're correct. What they thought about the father, what they thought of somebody else, what somebody said about somebody, they thought it was all correct, and they went rampant. And they just go wild, intoxicated, and they react and overreact. What did they get? They have lacerated all over their body, because the elephant was not tied to the post of Dharma, and they have actually go on the drama. They created so much drama. What did they get? They themselves become so much harmed, then they thought they were doing any good to anybody. They never did any good to anybody, because their mind went rampage like a wild elephant. So, where is your practice? What happened to your practice? What happened to the years of study? What did you do with it? You lost the whole thing, didn't you? Because your mind went so reacting to that rampant, wild, intoxicated, judgmental, impatient, intolerant, disrespectful mind. You lost your mind to that, and then that's why the elephant is now so wild and so dangerous, and it's so difficult to control, and itself is injured. It's got a lot of laceration and hurts everywhere, because it didn't tie itself to the post of the Dharma. Chula sempe kachen to the big post of the Dharma. Your elephant should be, your mind, your unruly mind should be tied to the post of the holy Dharma. Holy Dharma means your practices, your prayers, your meditations, your sadhanas. Where are they? What did you do with them? If you're not doing them, that's the problem. So your mind has gone some astray with something else instead. That's why it needs to be tied to the very post of holy Dharma. So that's why the teaching is very, 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 very direct, very, 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 very direct in terms how to achieve, how to bring the mind back. those who strive to master concentration, so meaning those people who heed to these, should never for an instant be distracted. So meaning you should, when you are learning to develop concentration meditation, this is talking about gaining, getting your mind in your hand. When people lose their mind, they lose everything. So when you have found your mind, that's what it says. Those who strive to master concentration means those who have come to find their mind should never for an instant be distracted. They shouldn't let the mind to let go astray. They should constantly investigate themselves. So always checking. Meditation means always checking your mind. It may look like a sadhana. You're using the sadhana, but always don't look at how the sadhana is right or wrong. Just look at your mind. Sadhana is just a mirror. Sadhana is just a mirror, and always it is supposed to help your mind. You're always looking at whether the practice is right for me or that kind of thing. Of course it is right for you. It's just the very thing you need. So don't have this so righteous mind whether it's not appropriate for you or something. You're too outsmart or something. It is the very thing you need. No great master have ever said, oh, this sadhana will not go well here, he gives something else. No, everybody's been giving. Every student have been doing these practices. That's what the living lineage is. Living lineage of the practitioner is those who have adhered, respected the teachings and practice they've been given, and not always, not becoming so unmindful of the value of the practice, and always checking whether this practice is right for me or right for me, that kind of thing. It's so important, nothing is appropriate for you. That's the very thing you need. So don't be distracted, whether your mind is so inquisitive, examining the movements of your mind. You got to check whether your mind is always like that or like that or not. In fearful situation, times of celebration, one may desist when self-survey becomes impossible, for it is taught that in the time of generosity, rules of discipline may be suspended. So this is talking about where the mindfulness should be tailored accordingly. If there are times of fear and fearful situation, and there are a lot of kind of festivity, whatever, there you have to be even more. Attention should not drift onto other things, because there are these things happening. You got to make sure that your self-survey, meaning your ability to keep your mind on your mind, introspectively should not be slackened. When you, it is said that when you times of practice of generosity, rules of discipline may be suspended. So means this is talking about sometimes you may have to practice certain things for the benefit of others, giving something to other people, and that may sometimes you can sort of suspend, or you may tailor your discipline accordingly. When it says tailor your discipline, rules of discipline may be suspended, really means that there are three types of discipline. There's a self-restrained discipline, so that you just don't do what you said you won't do. That's one of the thing. And a second is the collecting virtues, disciplines collecting virtues. If there's more benefit by doing that to others, then you may suspend a little bit of self-restraint. It doesn't really matter. Like His Holiness Dalai Lama says, he says, when sometimes he's become very, very busy all day, he didn't have a decent breakfast or lunch, in the afternoon he starts feeling hungry, and usually he doesn't eat. When he says he takes a little biscuit and asks the Buddha's permission and eat it, That's like, he's not being so rigid and becoming neurotic, Not like that, not being very extreme, Discipline that is extreme is not discipline. Discipline should have some degree of reasonable flexibility, and the rules of discipline may be suspended. It says maybe, doesn't mean should be. May be suspended if there is a case, if there is a need of case, Say if somebody says please have something, and you don't say, no, I don't eat in the afternoon, I'm a monk, or that kind of thing. Maybe you shouldn't be milling around with people at that time of the day in an eating place anyway, in the first place. But but if you do find, you might just to give company to people, if it's beneficial for them. I usually don't eat it, but just to celebrate our meeting, I'll have a little bit. Say that. It's very good. It's a really nice day. That is what it means. The rules of discipline may be tailored. I wouldn't talk about suspended, so it doesn't mean you will not observe those rules later on. Suspended sounds like a little bit of that. So that's where the translator is talking about. Tanyam means treated equanimously. It doesn't mean suspended. So the wording is a bit too strong there. I would say the rules of discipline may be tailored. Tailored means adapted to a certain given situation. If you have to, if you're giving your time and company to somebody, and it's very important that you do that, and then you may suspend a little bit, but you're not doing out of disrespect for the vows or whatever, or carelessness, but you deliberately do it with the vow of collecting virtues to other people. Beneficial thing to do. Beneficial thing to do, because some people feel, that you're not eating anything, they feel bad. They feel bad eating in front of you, not eating anything, so therefore, you don't want to put them on the spot. Yeah, that's why. If there's benefit for the collecting virtues purposes, you may tailor your discipline for the sake of that, not because you disregard the vows or discipline, but there is a greater purpose. The purpose is not to just prove how strict you are, but how beneficial it is for you to have any discipline. That you're respectful, you're caring, you're considerate to other people. So that's why in times of generosity, some of the rules may be tailored accordingly. So being able to do that doesn't mean you disregard. Disregarding rules is not mindfulness, but over the pros and cons of tailoring, then you may do that. That is mindfulness. Mindfulness is not rigid. Mindfulness is very flexible and very, 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 very flexible with given reasons for its flexibility. It doesn't mean it hasn't got any kind of boundaries. It has some boundaries, but boundaries are not so that you become so strict to each other for the sake of being rigid. But boundaries are so that to teach other how much you need to give when you're not really wanting to give. Yeah, sometimes you have to give in for the sake of your humility, for the sake of respecting the other, and not for the sake of your righteousness, your piousness. Maybe that's the problem. People are too strict with the rules, and because they're so self-important, thinking that if they did right, then they're good. If not, who doesn't do that, they're not good. Everything's black and white. Those people who couldn't tailor the discipline. Buddha's disciplines is not necessarily to keep the discipline for the sake of keeping. The discipline is for the sake of you knowing, what is the purpose of the discipline is so that you actually have a certain guidelines that help you to help others a little bit more skillfully, even in times of very extreme. So therefore, you're not made rigid and fundamentalist by the vows, because in the end, even the vows are not only relative anyway. So what you don't eat meat? So what you don't eat in the afternoon? So what you are celibate? But if you're so righteous, so rigid, so arrogant, there's no purpose. So you haven't benefited anybody but making yourself miserable. That's not the purpose of the vow at all. So that's called asceticism. Extreme asceticism is not cause of benefit. Buddha taught middle way. Middle way means you can tailor, adapt, not only from your point of intention, for the purpose, for the sake of others, not just for me. Because this is Bodhisattva's way of life. This is not Pratimoksha saying, these Pratimoksha vows are always physical vows. Bodhisattva vow is not physical vows, primarily. It's mainly intentional vows. What's your intention of doing that? Your intention is so that you can benefit others in the future or now, If you can't benefit now to somebody because you're making miserable, you look very, very rigid and stiff and so on, then how are you going to benefit other people? I'd bet it wouldn't benefit very much. Some people's morality is like that. Their morality is so abrasive. Some people's morality is very, very pliant. They have humility to admit their mistakes. They also are quick to pardon others. That is the purpose of morality, is not become so judgmental, so competitive, so arrogant. There's not morality. There is the pitfall of morality. This is why it says that one may tailor the discipline in the times of generosity or tolerance or whatever you have to do, So of course, some people are very, very fundamentalist, even in Buddhism. People think they're Buddhists, but they're not. They just like exactly what they used to come from. They just haven't changed a bit. They just haven't understood anything. His Holiness Dalai, these people don't know anything about Dharma. They just scratching on the surface. They have no understanding. They're just as bad as they first were, because they haven't got any maturity understanding Dharma, because they didn't realize moral discipline in Buddhism are three kinds. First is how to restrain from doing some harmful things. Second is to do things that are collecting beneficial things to others. If you don't benefit other people, merely you can restrain from doing something, it doesn't mean anything, So you have to gradually move from restraining from doing bad things to doing actually good things to other people. Harmlessness is good, but even better to be helpfulness. But it's for the sake of you not harming other people, and you become so righteous because you didn't harm. That's not the purpose of harmlessness. You become a hazard to other people. That's not helpfulness. That's harmfulness. So you never know what is harm and help unless you check your intention. If your intention is so inflexible, then that probably shows a hazard of righteousness. So religious fanaticism, they call it. There's a reason for that. Religious fanaticism is this righteousness. Our way is the only way, and if this is not right, and everything is wrong if that's not the way. If that kind of intolerant religious fanaticism is not needed in this well-educated 21st century human beings. 21st century people had enough of this fanaticism. That's why His Holiness Dalai Lama says we have to bring the Buddhism to the time that people expect. 21st century Buddhism is we have to be rational, we have to be logical, we shouldn't be dictatorial, we shouldn't be sort of totally locked up in their cultural closet of cultural Buddhism. We should be able to become pliant and flexible and room for modification and change if it's necessary. His Holiness even said that if science can prove Buddhism is wrong, probably Buddhism has to change. Of course, Buddhism doesn't need to change. Its interpretation has to be. Some people are so rigid, so that's so rigid. So that's Buddha himself have corrected that extreme fanaticism is not the way to go. That's why he taught middle way. So therefore, here Shantideva saying there are cases where you can tailor the discipline after looking at all the pros and cons of things. It doesn't mean you should ignore, you should disregard, you don't care about it. So that doesn't mean at all. It's exactly opposite. When something has been planned or started on, this is verse number 43, means this is mindfulness. Yeah, mindfulness. When you have something planned and have started on, attention should not drift to other things. Yeah, just fix your attention to doing just that. Don't pick too many interesting things. Mind is drifting here and there. With thoughts fixed on the chosen target, that and that alone should be pursued. So this is talking about you should be mindful. If you have decided to do something, then put your commitment to stay on that without faltering your mind hither to thither. And so like some of the courses, people doing courses at the university, they're doing this and then they're changing again and then they're changing again and then they're changing again. In the end, they didn't get a decent degree because they changed so much and they didn't get a decent major. It's like that. So you should think carefully first. Once you have chosen, just then stick with that. When you're able to do that, firstly, choose carefully when you start on something, and once you have started on that, then stick with that. Stick with that, and if you do that, then you will not drift to other things. If you drift to other things, that means you'll be distracted from what you have set out to do. And so, with your mind and attention, very much committed to what you have chosen to do, and you should make sure you do that very well. You just do that very well, and make it possible to accomplish the task you have put. Quite a lot of people are like that. They just don't have any kind of reliability. Don't take up too many. That those you do take up, try to pursue to accomplish it very well. It will boost your own confidence and usefulness, and also people's respectability of you. Because if you haven't been so reliable to pursue and to do something very well, people can't count on you. It doesn't mean you have to do everything, but that which you have chosen to do it until you bring a good fruition. And what does it mean is, that means you are very mindful, you're guarding your attention, you're conscious of where to build on where you have put your effort on, and therefore the effort is now trying to yield some good result, because you're not drifting away from one thing to another. Now this could be talking about your time management. What do you do on weekends? What do you do outside of work? What kind of self-improvement or something you should do? And then don't do all sorts of things. People are just picking and choosing so many. I know someone who was changing from one religion to another one, and he basically changed 4 religions last 20 years, and he's still moving on, still probably every intention not to staying with the one. And the life is so short. What's the point of having the time to change so many? And so why? Because the person is not doing something that he started very well. He's drifting from one to another, and therefore it's like a person who hasn't pursued something very well, and it hasn't got anything. It's drifting too many times. His attention is not disciplined to stick with what he set out to do. That's verse number 43. Behaving in this way, all tasks are well performed. Yeah, if you pay your attention in this manner, then whatever you need to do, it will be accomplished. And nothing is achieved by doing otherwise. So if you drifting hither and thither, you won't achieve either of the 2 or 3 that you choose. If you went to Islam, you didn't do Islam very well. You left that in despair. And then you go to Christianity, and you left also. Now you're maybe in something else. How long you will know you will stay there. So don't ever waste any more time like that. And nothing is achieved by doing like that. Afflictions and the reverse of vigilance can never multiply if this is how you act. Yeah. So if you are able to employ your introspection, your introspection will increase. None of these secondary afflictions of doubt, of fear, of anxiety, of attachment, none of these will overwhelm you. Why? Because you're very, very introspective. Your mind is fully introspective, and none of those others will increase. Why? You just know where to switch your mind on, put your whole attention to. Because you are very disciplined to put your attention to, it will not your afflictions, your secondary afflictions will not multiply. multiply, and they will not stifle what you are doing, because you are able to stay very fixed. You have to stay fix your attention. So this is talking about the benefit of being able to remain committed to the task that you have started and orientated with yourself. Verse number 45. And if by chance you must take part in lengthy conversation worthlessly, or if you come upon sensational events, then cast aside delight and taste for them. So this is talking about you should learn to renounce your attraction to these activities, your activities to, like, say, lengthy conversations, debate or discussing politics or this or that really gives you no benefit at all. You should learn to restrain yourself from engaging in such things, and because you obviously are so attached, you're so driven by that, and this will just completely waste your time and energy. So learn to renounce them, or do not look for any enticement from engaging in that. Mindfulness person is like that. He or she actually watch his time and where his next port of call is. He'd rather go that, and he'd make sure that his time is not consumed or taken up by such kind of frivolous waste of effort and energy with other people who don't seem to have who seem to have a lot of time on their plate when it comes to doing such things. So a person who is very mindful is timekeeping, and therefore he doesn't have time for lengthy conversations. He can tell people, look, I have half an hour, what can we talk? And then that's really good. I think we can respect those people. But the time they were there, they made a valid contribution. Why? Because they are like that. Others are not conscious of their time, and then they didn't do any valid contribution. They just, and sort of a lot of time was wasted in lengthy conversation, lengthy argument that are not relevant and unproductive. And so you should be mindful of unproductive conversations and discussions or opinions, and you should have the decency to cast aside, means to renounce them. You should not get attached to such time waste. And of course, you don't tell that is wasted by people. You don't tell people you don't waste my time. You just say, I'm sorry, I have to be excused. Instead of saying, you're wasting my time, what are you talking? Why don't you say politely, I have to go, thank you very much? It's much better saying that than saying you're wasting my time. Why? You're mindful of how not to hurt somebody. If you hurt somebody, that's worse than wasting time. So if you say, I'm sorry, I have to go, then then it's really there's a lot of goodness in that. 45. Now 46, it goes to talking about if you find you are grubbing in the soil or pulling up the grass or tracing idle patterns on the ground, remembering the teachings of the blissful one, in fear restrain yourself at once. So this is talking about, again, subjectively, you're so mindful of sitting there, what you're doing, so that if you're unnecessarily grubbing the soil or floor or maybe some sweater or something. Some people are very restless. You can see that they're always playing with the fingernails or whatever. They have kind of a maybe some kind of a condition. Maybe they're so restless. So Shantideva was saying you shouldn't uselessly spend time doing such things, digging the soil or scribbling something or writing something that is not related. You should remember the Buddha's teachings. You should remember the mindfulness, the blissful one, and fearing, why I'm doing this, and then you should quickly restrain that, restrain whatever you're doing, whatever you're doing. So it's just becoming much more mindful of what you're doing, what you're doing with the hands, what you're doing with your thoughts, or what you're doing with your feelings, what you're doing with your plans or sometimes why I'm thinking this, I don't want to, just get out of here, sort of thing. You should fear, I'm wasting my time, I'm thinking and grabbing my mind and sort of doing these things. These are all waste of time. I should remember the mindfulness of the Dharma, mindfulness of time management. So why am I myself doing this without any sign of self-control? You should remember the teaching, remember the teachings of the Dharma, and in fear. This is positive fear. So he says you should be afraid. I'm wasting my time and energy doing this like this. I should be doing something useful instead. And that's a really good realization. When you feel the wish to walk about, if you wanted to go somewhere, or even you wanted to talk, even if you wish to talk, first examine what is in your mind. First check what is in your mind and what is your intention. For they will act accordingly who have stable minds. So if you wanted to go somewhere or say something, you just first check what is your intention, why you want to do that, why you can't wait, why you have to do that now, how are you going to say that you're going to do that will go very well, so just check how appropriate it is to do the way you think you're doing, because if you have this kind of, if you check your mind carefully, you will act correctly, because it would be sign of one who is with his mind, one who has not lost his mind. One who has not lost his mind will act as he has his mind, and because of that, when he wants to go somewhere, he have to see, what am I going there for? What's my intention and purpose? Okay, then you check, and you don't just go because people say it's interesting or like whatever, You don't just go aimlessly wander off yourself. If you wish to go somewhere, check what's your intention, purpose. Was it worth it? Was it worth it? Is it worth it to go in there for? Not. Okay, if it is, how can you go there very well? For what purpose? Or if you want to say something, if I say something, what is my intention? Is this the manner of saying is going to fulfill the intention or will not? So I have to be very courteous, very respectful if I want to say this, because I want to say this for a purpose. If the purpose is not fulfilled, then you will regret later on saying it. So therefore, you have to be mindful of not only where you want to go, but what you want to say, and why you want to say it, and how you want to say it. If you examine these, first examine what is in your mind. Secondly, check whether it's valid and useful. And if you don't test it, if you don't qualify it, if you don't scrutinize it, who will? People will check whether it's well thought through what you're saying, or whether it's not worth less paying any attention to. Because the one who has thought through it carefully, whatever he says and does will bear very positive outcome, because he checked with the intention and the time and energy and resources that is needed to carry that out. So he warrants everything, because of his careful consideration of all the factors that needs to be given into correct attention. When the urge arises in my mind, so urge or desire, when there is a strong desire in my mind, to feelings of desire and wrathful hate, whether you very passionate to something, about something, or whether you're angry about something, or whatever it is, do not act, do not output those attachment or desire or your rage as they come to manifest in your mind. Do not act. Be silent. He said, be silent means do not speak. Do not speak your feelings of hate and attachment or desire. Do not act. Be silent. Do not speak. And like a log of wood, be sure to stay. So it means you should remain like a inanimate object, like a piece of log, or like a table, or like a chair. Just pretend you're a chair. Just pretend you're a log, because you're so full of these kind of negative emotions that are so intoxicatingly wrong, whether it's desire or rage or disappointment or upset or whatever it is. Do not say, act, or do anything that is right in your mind. Because if you can make yourself like an inanimate log, you have gained control from becoming those defilements, afflicted mind. So you become very cognizant of the anger when you have anger, or desire when you have anger, jealousy when you have jealousy, or righteousness when you have righteousness, or hostility when you have hostility. When you see the hostility, when you see somebody who's hostile, you wait until they speak. It looks so awful. Now, do you want to do that yourself? Okay, when you have eyes to look at other people, you should have another eye to look at you, what you're about to say, what you're about to do, and what you're about to have do become completely, the consequences of that will all fall on you. It's not going to be inconsequential. It's going to be consequential. So that is mindfulness, not just the thought and feelings and emotions, but what is the purpose of me expressing these thoughts, feelings, emotions? If so, will this produce the good consequences I want, or the opposite? When you weigh up all of this, that is the introspection. That is the mind that is really guarded, and then you will say, oh, I don't want to say this to her, poor thing, she's in a difficult situation. If I say this, it wouldn't go very well, and therefore remain silent. Yeah, because you just have to verify why you need not to speak, and then make peace with yourself. Don't think that you have been some kind of a controlling yourself and passively aggressive towards them. That's not the purpose. That's not mindfulness. Passive aggression is not mindfulness. It is mindlessness. Actively passive. You are actively passive inside, but your passivity has an active function for you to contain your desire, to your rage, your disappointment, your childishness, all of the bout. So that's the active bit. Passive bit is you're not out reacting childishly as we normally do when we don't have the mindfulness. Mindfulness as a guard at the door of your mind. When your mindfulness has been stationed as a guard at the door, then don't act that you thought what you're going to do. Don't say what you thought you're going to say. Don't express your emotions that are destructive when you know it's destructive. So make the destructive emotion intelligent emotion. Make the active physical behavior to be passive. Make the very eloquent mind about to say some hurtful words or condescending words become silent. Don't speak. That is the reversal of your normal behavior. That's the vigilance. That is the function of the what you call introspective mind. And the mind is so subjectively cognizant of what it needs to contain, whether it's thoughts, whether it's feelings, whether it's emotions, whether it's perception. He knows they have no room for this conversation. He knows it is no. Being able to say no to himself is a good no. No words, no sound, no smell. Yeah, that's right. Don't say any words. Don't have to say any sound. That doesn't make any sound meaning. And so, produce no sound. Be silent. Don't act anything. There's no benefit to act. Become very, very passive. Do not speak anything, because there's nothing good is going to come from that kind of mind. So therefore, just save the hum that will have many terrible consequences. And That's why you should imitate a log. Log would be sure to stay. So just be a log. Just be a stool. Just be a table or floor or something. Don't try to be ego. Don't try to be self. Don't try to be the bossy father, or don't try to be the kind of judgmental friend. Just be the doormat. Just be the door. Just be the tree. Just be something else for a change. And that's mindfulness, of swapping your identity. And that is so useful to be able to do that. When the mind is wild and with mockery and filled with pride and haughty arrogance, now if only when you're mindful you will be able to see when you're wild or mockery, or when you're filled with pride and haughty arrogance, when you can really see that, when you like that. And when you want to show the hidden faults of others, you wanted to talk about other people's faults, or most of them are alleged other people's faults anyway, to bring up all dissension and act deceitfully. When you see yourself have the mind that detect these things. When you're wild, when you're mockery, when you're arrogant, and when you become very, very sort of doesn't concern you, but you wanted to sort of talk about somebody else's faults or alleged faults, or your projection of it, at that time, when these things are happening, and when you wanted to fish for praise, maybe you want other people to praise, speak nicely about you, or criticize, spoil another's name, or use harsh language, sparing for a fight. It's then that, like a log, you should remain. So Shantideva is talking about when you have become subjectively cognizant of your own arrogant, judgmental, and very, very busybody, and try to seek praise from other people for yourself, and then also putting down other people, criticizing them, talking negatively about other people, or even thinking negatively of other people, at that time, try to be a log. Just don't try to be the ego. Don't try to be the school teacher or the father or the friend or whatever that you try to be to nitpick somebody else's alleged faults, as if you don't have any faults. At that time, you should become a log, and just become yourself as inanimate object. Don't try to be the ego that you think is so righteous. Righteous. And when you yearn for wealth, attention, name, a circle of admirers serving you, and when you look for honors, recognition, it is then like a log you should remain. So Shantideva is saying that when you have all this needy mind, I want this, I want attention from people, I want to be loved, I want to be respected by other people, and thinking that many people like you, and you want people to speak nicely about you. You want to be giving recognition by other people. You want everybody to sing praises. When you have these things, you should recognize these are dangerous. I'm just filled with gas here, gas of arrogance here. So at that time, instead of singing the praises of yourself, you should remain like a log. You should go somewhere, disappear. When you think you're becoming more important, you should try to become less important. Like a log, and if you are beginning to always think of how important you are and not the others and so on, and that's the time you should become a piece of log, because this ego is going to cause a lot of dissension and a lot of problem for yourself and to others. So if you're mindful, be mindful to detect this kind of praise-seeking mind, always seeking for compliment, acknowledgement, respect, and gift, and and these things. If you're looking for this, if you want people to love you, if you want people to tell you nice things that you're good, you're so needy. You're so needy of other people. That time you should not entertain the neediness of you, but you just have to be a log, and it could be cast away anywhere on the roadside, on the middle of the puddle, or down the precipice. It could be thrown away. Who want to be as a log? You should try to be a selfless log. You're so full of yourself. And so Shantideva was talking the danger of ego, pride, self-importance, attention, love, generosity of other people. Those yogis were deliberately going and behaving in a way that people don't show them respect. They say you should observe the discipline so much. Once you have observed all the disciplines so much, then you should do exact the opposite, so that you attract no respect at all from other people. Because if you have people say they restrain many things, but they're still attached to respect. If there's a lot of neediness to be respected by other people, that's the most dangerous thing. Most dangerous thing. So you should actually try to be a log. There's a danger of you becoming recognized or respected. So at that time, the most dangerous thing is you're going to be respected more. The respect is ego. Ego is the cause of suffering. Who wants that? So Shantideva says, when you look for honors and recognition, you are in trouble. You're so needed to be honored and respected and served and loved or treated very specially, and having always seeking special treatment, and all of this is not Dharma. This is Dharma. This is all ego drama. This is not Dharma. Buddha himself always stay in very, very humble hut. He refused to live in palaces, and it's not that he didn't have that, but all those honors and royalty and positions and possessions that he had, he knew these are all cause of his hindrance for his spiritual growth. That's why Buddha gave up these. Why you are so keen to get the very things the Buddha renounced? Buddha said you should give up. Why are Buddhists so materialistic? Buddhist materialism, Buddhist spiritual materialism, This is somewhat quite concerning in Tibetan Buddhism, All the monasteries are very comfortable, very luxurious, and they don't look like look like a home from homelessness, It looks like going to no home to better homes, No home to better homes, and then they want private rooms, and then they want an attached bathroom and these kind of things, Because there's all these people who get to stay in the room by themselves. There's some honor or something. It's really ridiculous. You should be able to accept whatever there is, as long as you have a roof over the head. Seeking always honor, recognition, status. Shantideva says, be mindful. In Buddhism, we don't talk about be mindful of other people. We talk about mindful of your own neediness to be respected, to be recognized, to be served very well, that you have enough high a cushion for you, that you have enough better the seat than anybody else. These kind of things is not Buddhism. These are completely opposite. Buddha himself refused to sit on very high ornate chairs or seat. In Tibetan Buddhism, it's completely opposite. They put all these people who think they have big cars, and then also big car is also big jeeps. Most modern one. They don't want to travel in small, simple cars. And this is. If this is offered by generous benefactors to do that, it's of course they do that. But maybe it's not necessary. The status of the Lama or the monk or the teacher who need this kind of level of 5-star treatment is not really important. It's opposite. It should not be the cause of your concern. It should not be the protocols that you have to have certain protocols. All these protocols, I mean, Buddha had protocols, to his God back arms. That's what's the protocols. Shantideva is saying the same thing, that he's in 7th century, even though he came after 1100 years of the Buddha passed away, he's still talking about the importance of lack of honor. If you're thinking of those things, you should become a log. You should become a log. You should not give up your position of the abbot or high this or high that. If you are seeking all of these positions, if you're so needy, I'm this, I'm that, all this self-importance, because you got so many followers, you got so many benefactors or students or admirers, and therefore you are so important. To get caught up in that is very dangerous. You want a particular status of kind of a car, or how many cars, or how many people greeting you, and if you're caught up in that, he says, if you're looking for that, that is the time you're overdue to become a log. You should have become log long time ago, but why it's well over time that you should demote yourself to become a log. Then you have really heeded to the teaching. Otherwise, if you always focus on the self-importance of you yearning all of this, that's not Dharma. And when you want to do another down, that's right. When you want to bring down somebody else, you're so keen, you're so driven to prove somebody wrong, and cultivate advantage for yourself. You wanted to bring down somebody in order to benefit yourself. And when you wish to gossip comes to you, when the wish to gossip, when you want to talk negative things about other people, it is then that like a log you should remain. Yeah, all of this mindfulness, that you have to be mindful of when you wanted to bring down somebody, that time you should become a log, When you want to take advantage of by putting down somebody, as if you discover that, as you are so important, that time you should become a log, and if you want to talk bad things against people, behind people's back, cause schism, and at that time, you should be mindful. You should be mindful not to speak the gossip that you have in mind. It is time for you to become a piece of log. You should become a log instead of wanting to bring down anybody, for that matter. Bring down anybody or take advantage for yourself, any advantage for yourself. But instead of talking bad things about other people, you should make time to become log. That's what Shantideva is in many ways. He's talking to yourself. This is time for you to become log. He says that time I should remain like a piece of log. So this saying comes from this chapter. Impatience, indolence, faint-heartedness, and likewise haughty speech and insolence, attachment for your side. When these arise, and then like a log you should remain. See, meaning, so you're very impatient, you're very angry, you're very indolent, and when you see these things, you're very arrogant, you're so attached to your side, and you're aversion to the other, and when you're full of these kind of afflictions, at that time you should well and truly know it's time for you not to entertain any of these, but to become a kind of inanimate object like a piece of log. And this is the Shantideva is very, very very, very direct, that you should become a log, piece of log. This is not talking about you don't have an ID. That's a good. You don't have an ID. You are not an entity. You're just a piece of log. You're nothing. People say you should try to become nothing. And why are you so busy to become something who is always needing to put somebody down, or someone who has to think he's great, or he has this or he's that? When you're thinking like that, you should become nothing. that is sign of you having mindfulness. That's exactly what it did. Kunu Rinpoche, who praised Lord of Bodhicitta, he traveled to India, he traveled then in Tibet, he studied with maybe 150 lamas of different lineages. He became like a tutor to the Panchen Lama. He became teacher to some very important aristocrat in Tibet and so on and so forth. Then when he came to India, he just became such he became anonymous. He mingled with the kind of the hermits and the hermits who squat on the street corner and beg for alms. He just mixed with them. Nobody knows who he is. Why? He want to be a log. I think that maybe becoming a Varanasi street sadhu is probably a little bit higher than the log. I think it's very difficult to be a piece of log. I think be a Varanasi street sadhu, which is the street beggars. Street beggar is probably as a good demotion from being very high lama. He has no attendant, he has no followers, he hasn't got anything. He hasn't got a driver, he doesn't got this, he doesn't got that. He just very, 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 very unimportant. People don't even recognize he's a Buddhist Lama because he doesn't act like one. He just act like he's a very ordinary person, and he really squat like the very Indians. So when I saw him squatting, I couldn't believe he can do that. His knees was taller than his head, when he sit, because he sit on this. His legs feet are on the ground. His knees are up like this. He sit that all the day, whole day. You don't see him sit cross-legged. Because he's just so good. Indians are so good at squatting. It's probably one of the yogic postures like that. Yeah. Examine thus yourself from every side, note harmful thoughts and every futile striving. He says, so you have to examine yourself and take a note of any harmful thoughts, ill wills and covetousness and enmity, or any of those in a vicious mind or malice or ill will or anger or every futile pursuit. Thus it is that heroes in the Bodhisattva's path apply remedies to keep a steady mind. So the one who has mindfulness, watch out his own mind and note his own harmful, malicious intent and thoughts, and whatever wasteful energy he's striving, he takes a notice of that. And the one who is a brave soldier of Dharma on the path of the Bodhisattva's road, he remedies those mindset of his. He is very, very cognizant. He is very, very, literate of his own mind, and he knows, he crosses those thoughts. He says, you're log, become a log instead, become a log yourself instead, don't be that. And he's very steady to correct his mind. And that's exactly what enlightenment is. All the self-importance slowly reduced, because he's mindful. He's mindful of the danger of self-cherishing. He's seeing the danger of self-grasping. That's the real mindfulness. I don't know about this productivity and leadership, all this accuracy, speed, and all these things. Mindfulness is very materialism, So those who have hijacked mindfulness for that, please don't think it's Buddhism. It's not. It's whatever you call it, secular or something, Real mindfulness, Buddhism, in the particular Bodhisattva way of life, is mindfulness to detect the danger of self-cherishing, self-grasping. Whether it's a respect or gain or honor or whatever, or ill will or whatever, you need to have mindfulness that detect that. Have a mindfulness that actually have discovered the harmfulness of the enmity and ill will. That's real mindfulness. And disgustingly throw it out, and accept goodwill, kindness. That is mindfulness Buddhism, okay? So don't think every mindfulness teaching mindfulness. Of course, People do a lot of amazing study and research and laboratory. They're also doing mindfulness. So there's no shortage of secular mindfulness, okay? Look at that. They produce all this atomic bomb and all of that. They are not a product of mindfulness. We're not talking about that kind of mindfulness. We're talking about forgetting those kind of mindfulness and practice the altruism. And try to contain this very hazardous ego-driven mind that seeks for gain or promise or respect for oneself. And those who are attached to respect is attachment too. If you're attached to pure reputation, that is also attachment to pure reputation. If you have been demoted to the ranks of a piece of log, that is real mindfulness. And accept that with humility, without any kind of sense of loss or humiliation. It's actually best gift is that someone who demotes you to the rank of a piece of log. And why? It teaches you practice selflessness. And why? It teaches you to know the selfishness is the root cause of suffering. It continues to be one. It is not a new thing that you are discovering. That's why the Buddha talked that one who discovers the Dharma discovers the practice of great compassion, because great compassion completely remedies enmity and self-importance. That's the guarding of the mind. Mindfulness, guarding your mind, is so that it doesn't look for praise, gain, profit, benefit, respect, honor for yourself. If you find your mind is doing that because you've been a good Buddhist practitioner or monk or whatever, and you're seeking that and you attach to that, that is spiritual materialism. That is not going to be a great cause of your spiritual growth. Humility and lack of self-importance are exactly what the Buddha taught and practiced. Buddha taught and lived as a monk because he was a monk, and he never went in search of such fanciful things, fanciful objects, or fanciful places, because he made it very simple. And this is why the honor and respect that we give to the Buddha is not because he needed them. He sat so low. He sat so low with he had no conditions. He had no protocols. He just go and beg the alms. That's it. That's the protocol of Buddha. Most true Buddhist monk should be like that. That is real, almost like a piece of log. But a piece of log you don't have to feed. I think that's a bit hard. but the Buddhist monks who are begging alms, they are really there. That's probably very good for the ego, very good for the discipline, very good for the actual Buddha Dharma, that people actually live by that. But maybe that's the difficulty. That is, so it's so difficult to be like a log. Most difficult to be. That's why it's courageous. That's courageous. That's why there's so few who are able to take up the path and live like that. And most are form and only. They are not really living exactly, because they're filled with this neediness of respect and gain and honor and recognition and all of that. That is of course completely beside Buddhism. This is not Buddhism, let alone Dharma, let alone Mahayana Buddhism. So it's very important to crystallize the teachings of Bodhisattva's way of life, is guarding his mind. This chapter is 5th chapter, and he's guarding his mind so that it doesn't lose the mind itself to such worldly pursuit. So that would be really what Shantideva is highlighting in these verses that we've gone through tonight. Thank you very much, everyone. So we have a lot of points there to register in our mindfulness and try to guard post our guard at the door of mind. And then keep an eye on that with introspection. So with this, we will conclude here. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll do the dedication of merits. Om Varaga Dhadeva Benzage Hom Nejan Male Berero Berom Di Ocean of Buddha Desinede Herenda Mahayana Deja Odeva Merera Havaga Mehobe Begastelaza Troda Mahayana Deja Kareja Manjujinyode Azama Trabadra de Lava following de Zamba Aisha de Dege Ode Mere Mede Zalem Bodhisattva Teba Vede no Yedazo Vede Bembo Me Jingri Freely Veda de Generation. Thank you, everyone. That's all. Take care.